transparency, before I sat down to film this episode, I was having a really hard time with just clothes fitting, with just not feeling confident on coming onto this podcast, which is crazy because it's my space. I own it, but I think that is what's great about what I'm about to say for this upcoming episode is that I feel like these past 5 weeks have really challenged me to confront a lot of issues that I had been suppressing, not listening to, not entirely sure. And so over the past 5 weeks, I have been challenging myself because I really felt like I needed to make a radical change in my habits, in my attitude about life, in my routines, because I feel like I had really become stuck in this rut of what I thought was just this was my new, this was how I lived now. And I think what had actually happened is I had done that thing which I've talked about, which can happen with your routine, is I had become so immersed into my routine and into my day-to-day that starting this challenge has caused me to shake things up, and I've had to confront some issues. And like I said, I started this challenge 5 weeks ago. It is, by the time this episode comes out, it will have been week 5. And Bestie and I were feeling both a little blah and like we both needed to make a radical change. And so we challenged ourselves. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Taking Up Space with Jordan. I'm your host, Jordan, and I started this platform to encourage women to dream bigger, dream louder, with one honest conversation at a time. And today's episode does come with a gentle trigger warning. I am going to be talking about weight loss. That can be triggering for some. So if you're not ready to hear this, please honor yourself and tune back into next week. In this episode, I will share a link where you can create your own 8-week challenge if you are interested in following me along. It's completely undated, so you can actually start whenever makes the most sense for you. And as always, don't forget to like, share, or subscribe to the podcast. That's the number one way to support me in my dream. So let's get into it. So, a little background on this challenge. At the start of this year, I began GLP-1, also known as semaglutide, which is, I believe, a form of Ozempic. But basically, for context, I had spent the previous 2 years steadily losing weight, but eventually I hit this plateau. No matter what I did, the scale wouldn't budge, the measurements weren't changing. I was doing the calorie tracking, I was hitting my protein, I was hitting my fiber, I was working out 3 to 4 times a week, I was watching what I was eating, I was doing all of the things, and it just wasn't working. And so, out of both frustration and a little bit of hope, I decided to give it a try. And I need to be very, very clear. Having this conversation and putting this out online does not give anyone any reason to dictate like how my body looks or anything. I was not happy with the way I looked because it didn't match how I was feeling inside. I was tired of feeling like I was slower. I was tired of feeling not as strong as I wanted to feel. And that is why I decided to give semaglutide a try. And that's why I decided to, well, give it a shot, literally. Once a week, I had to inject myself in the stomach. And making that decision wasn't easy. It was a constant back and forth. Was it worth the money? What about the side effects I'd heard about? They heard they could be so awful. Was I cheating? And for a long time, I equated using the medication with not doing it the right way. But pretty quickly, I realized it wasn't cheating. It was actually a tool. Of course, there are going to be side effects. If I let myself get too hungry, I got nauseous. I had to prioritize protein and fiber even more than how I was. And honestly, hydration was not optional. I couldn't slack on the water. And alcohol, honestly, I had to be extra cautious because the medicine made hangovers so much worse. And I stayed on it for about 4 to 5 months, probably closer to 5 in total. And during that time, I was feeling good. I was working out, I was running again, I was moving my body in ways I hadn't been able to in years. The weight was finally coming off, and I was finally breaking through a goal that had always felt out of reach. And for the first time in a long time, I really started to see the glimpses of the person I wanted to be. And here's where it gets a little bit vulnerable, maybe. I've never really seen myself as sexy or attractive. I've always been cute. I have the big cheeks, the big eyes, the curly cute hair, but deep down I believe that if I just lost the weight, then I'd finally feel attractive. But even on semi-glutide, I realized those old feelings were still there. The negative thoughts about my body didn't magically disappear with the number on the scale. And that's when I knew I had to make it a deeper conversation with myself and with my therapist. And through those conversations, I had to face the reality that I carried so many fat phobic beliefs about myself, things that I'd picked up from growing up in the early 2000s, from diet culture, from the patriarchy, whatever it was. What I discovered is this. I will never be happy in my body until I believe two things. One, that I am attractive right now, and two, that my size does not determine my worth. So I want to leave you with a gentle reminder. If you are struggling with your weight or your relationship with your body, please reach out for support. It's not normal to constantly police what we're eating, to shame yourself every time you put clothes on, or to hear that inner voice telling you that you're not beautiful. I know this because I've lived it. I also know it's possible to work through it. Eventually, though, to get back to our background information, things shifted. My provider was suddenly caught in this decision of continuing prescribing the medication or face pressure from a larger corporation telling her that she couldn't. And just like that, I was told she could no longer provide it to me. I was devastated. I was angry. I was upset. And of course, I thought, as soon as I find the thing that's working for me, it gets taken away. Did you catch the limiting belief in that? At the time, I didn't. Not for a couple of months, actually. Instead, I gave up. I convinced myself I couldn't lose weight without the help of GLP-1. So I stopped trying. I ate whatever I wanted. I drank excessively. I drifted further and further from the person that I wanted to be. And that pity party lasted for about 6 or 7 weeks. I'd still step on the scale hoping for some kind of magic, but instead of it going down, the number crept up higher. And in a moment of vulnerability, I admitted to Bestie that I was struggling, and she opened up to me about wanting to make changes herself. And that conversation was the spark, the moment where this challenge was born. So this challenge, it started kind of with this 75 days harder situation, but then we realized that for both of us, it's not necessarily about the food intake. It's not actually about the working out. Those things are important. But what we realized that we were wanting is that we needed to change our habits and our routines to support the lives that we actually wanted to be living. Because we didn't want to be policing ourselves all the time. We didn't want to be feeling guilty all the time for not working out or not doing this. And so the challenge wasn't about being perfect every single day. It was about building habits and routines that supported our dream lives. It was about reminding myself that the powerful, badass version of me already exists and that these habits are simply helping her rise to the surface. I've been doing this challenge with my bestie, my accountability buddy, and maybe that's something for you to think about. Who in your life could you partner with when you're trying to change your habits? Because having somebody with you to go through this journey with and to bitch and complain with, but also to support you and care for you and love you is very important. It's so hard to do this on your own. If you're anybody that's ever tried to even run a marathon or write a book or anytime you try to isolate yourself and do it alone, it becomes so much more difficult unless you have a buddy. Supposed to start before the fall and winter when motivation usually starts to dip, and it's a little bit easier to make excuses usually when it's cold and wet and gross outside. And I personally didn't want to give myself an out. I wanted to prove to myself that I could keep showing up even when it wasn't convenient. And let me be honest, it has not been convenient. But that's the beauty of a challenge. If it feels too easy, it's not really stretching you. By the time this episode airs, we will be in week 5. And honestly, the things I expected to be hard have actually turned out to be easier, while the simple things have ended up testing me the most. And that's how I know this challenge is working. It's pushing me out of my comfort zone. Here's what my side of the challenge looks like and why I chose each piece. The first part of this is no alcohol. I wanted to give myself clarity. Alcohol was becoming a crutch for numbing stress, but it left me drained and foggy and further away from who I wanted to be. I would wake up groggy and not be able to write or post content the way I wanted to. And maybe for you, it's not alcohol. Maybe it's scrolling before bed or saying yes to plans when your body's screaming for you to rest. Basically, what is your fog creator that you need to shift away from? The second one was no caffeine after 1 p.m. This one was more about protecting my sleep. I realized that I couldn't keep complaining about feeling tired if I wasn't willing to change my habits. I've also been struggling with a lot of insomnia, and truthfully, the caffeine mixing with the alcohol was only making things worse. And so, when thinking about this habit, I was thinking about what was sabotaging my energy without me realizing it. And so, maybe you can think about your challenge in that regard. The third part of my challenge was 3 strength training sessions each week. Strength is my anchor. It's not just about how I look. It's actually about proving to myself that I can do hard things rep by rep. In the words of Alana Mar, have you tried being strong? It's pretty sexy. So what kind of movement makes you feel powerful instead of punished? Fourth one, and unfortunately, this has been close to one of the hardest ones. This fourth one was about intentionality, not eating out. Eating out had become my autopilot, but I wanted to take back control over how I fueled my body, but also respecting my finances. I can already say that over the past 5 weeks, I've saved almost $500 this month because I haven't been eating or drinking out. And maybe it's not eating out for you. Maybe it's impulse shopping or ordering Uber Eats without thinking. Where could you pause autopilot spending? And finally, water before caffeine. A small but powerful boundary with myself. It reminds me that my body deserves nourishment before stimulation. So, what tiny ritual could you add that says, my body comes first? And actually, I forgot about another one, which is bed by 10 p.m. Sleep is the foundation of everything. Because I'm not giving myself an afternoon caffeine hit, I'm naturally tired earlier, which means I've actually been waking up earlier with more time to focus on what matters, like writing podcast episodes. A couple others that are not necessarily about the daily habits, but a weekly one that I've wanted to incorporate for a very long time now, but finally have started incorporating it more, is one self-care evening each week. Rest had become something that I unfortunately had pushed to the back burner with trying to do too much, especially with the podcast. But now I'm actually starting to protect it even more. I have been scheduling specific evenings to slow down and nurture myself and create space for joy. So when you think about your challenge, what's one ritual that would tell your nervous system you are safe to rest? And now I know some people might hear this and they might think, wow, that sounds really restrictive. But for me, it wasn't about restriction. It was actually about recalibration. I was eating out without thought. I was drinking excessively. I was drifting further and further away from the version of myself that I've been working so hard to build. This challenge became my way of drawing a line in the sand and saying, enough. Every habit on this list is one small step towards becoming the woman I know that I'm meant to be. And here's the funny part. I thought giving up alcohol was actually going to be the most brutal one because it's something that I do to relax. Turns out it's been one of the easiest things to let go of. What's actually been harder is sticking to the no caffeine after 1 p.m. It sounds so simple, but breaking the habit of grabbing a little afternoon pick me up has been so rough. So I've replaced it with sparkling water or a mini dog walk to give myself a natural dopamine boost instead. And that's the thing about challenges, though, that I think we forget a lot of times. They are going to reveal the places where we've been underestimating ourselves and the places where we've been avoiding the real work, which I kind of mentioned at the very beginning of this episode. So where am I now? I am 5 of the 8 weeks in. I think by the time this episode comes out, I will be starting week 5, if I remember correctly. And after pushing through that hump of the first couple weeks, I can honestly say I am feeling pretty good overall. It hasn't been perfect, but it's been progress. I've had my fair share of challenges like going to concerts and football games and social nights out. In the past, those moments would have been my easy excuse to fall back into old patterns. But this time, I've held strong. I've proven to myself that I can enjoy life without giving up on myself in the process. And I've been working out consistently, and I've been even starting to contemplate adding a fourth strength session into my rotation on weeks when I can't actually swing it. That alone is proof that this is becoming more of a lifestyle than a temporary fix. Another plus is I've been feeling a lot stronger. My planks last longer. I attempted something called a wall sit, also known as Hell's Torture, if you ask me, but I'm slowly improving there too. These little signs remind me that progress isn't just about the numbers on a scale, it's about what your body can do and how empowered you feel living inside of it. I used to think that I wasn't going to be able to lose weight without GLP-1 to help regulate my hunger and my hormones. But here I am, I'm doing it myself. And sure, it's taking a lot more discipline, but I love that through this challenge, I've actually been able to confront that belief head on and prove myself wrong. And that makes me feel not only good about myself, but accomplished and whole. And here's the part that feels genuinely pretty special. I'm approaching my first birthday, and this challenge will wrap up, I think, just like a week or two beforehand. And birthdays always feel like a natural moment of reflection, a check in with yourself, am I living the life I want? Am I moving closer to who I want to be? Maybe it's the Libra in me, always searching for some type of balance. But for the first time in my adult life, I can honestly say I am happy with where I am. I think there are things that I still struggle with that I didn't realize that I was struggling with. I think my confidence when it comes to a romantic partner, I think my confidence when it comes to putting myself out there is definitely on the weaker end, which is something that I'm learning over these past 5 weeks is that I need to work on that. But one thing that I've been so happy with that I have to remember when things start to feel down, when things start to feel hard, is that this year hasn't been learning a hard, painful lesson this year. It's been about self-care. It's been about putting me and my dreams first. And this challenge has been an extension of that commitment. Don't get me wrong, I'm definitely looking forward to celebrating with a margarita when this is over. But I'm also already proud of myself. 8 weeks sounds like a long time on paper, but in reality, it's just a season. And if that season brings me closer to the woman I've always wanted to be, then it's worth it. So maybe you're listening to this and you're realizing that you're ready for a challenge yourself. Your challenge doesn't have to look like mine. In fact, it shouldn't. It can be whatever habits you know are keeping you stuck. You can ask yourself things like, what's one small boundary or shift I could commit to for the next 8 weeks that would bring me closer to the life I want? Because here's the truth. The challenge isn't really about the rules. It's about proving to yourself that you are capable of showing up differently. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. That belief carries you forward into everything else. And I've always been transparent on this podcast, and that's not going to ever change. I said this challenge wasn't about being perfect. It's about showing up and checking as many boxes as I can. And in that process, I've learned 3 very big lessons for this challenge. The first lesson is discipline over motivation. If you're constantly waiting to feel like it, you're never going to do it. There is never a right moment to do a hard thing. Do I want to work out at 5 a.m.? Absolutely not. I'd never been that person. But with a full-time job, 3 needy animals, and this podcasting dream, that's sometimes the only slot I get. And if I want this life, I have to show up for it. So I think about it in this way. Where in your life are you waiting for motivation when what you really need is discipline? Lesson 2, accountability matters. Knowing that my bestie has already hit her challenges for the day pushes me to do mine. And I know that she's relying on me too. My success motivates her, and her success motivates me. Accountability is a game changer. So when you're thinking about this challenge or participating in any type of challenge, who could be your accountability buddy? Who can help you show up on the days that you'd rather quit? And my final lesson is the small habits are going to be sneakier than the big ones. The hardest part hasn't been giving up alcohol. It has been sticking to my bedtime routine and cutting caffeine after 1 p.m. because it's just so easy to say, just one more chapter or just one more TikTok scroll, just one more email. but those small decisions don't serve the bigger vision. I decided to record this episode before the actual challenge was even over because it ties into last week's episode about doing the hard things even when life feels heavy, going for your dream life even when it's hard. If you haven't listened to that one, I highly recommend it. I recorded that episode in a week that absolutely tested me. It was scheduling disasters, exhaustions, all of it. And yet, this challenge reminded me that even when life feels impossible, I'm still moving towards my dream. And that reminder, that's liberating. It showed me how resilient I've been and how resilient I will continue to be. Because at the end of the day, we all need those reminders. Our dreams matter. The small choices matter. And building your dream life isn't about giant leaps. It's about stacking those consistent choices until one day you look around and you realize you're living it. So now that you've made it this far, you can access my 8-week challenge template. It's completely undated, so you can start whenever feels right for you. You can grab it by following the link in the show notes. And here's my ask. If you download it, use it. DM me, tag me on Instagram or TikTok. Let me see you putting this into practice. I want to cheer you on. I want to celebrate your wins, and I want to share your journey with this community. Because here's the truth. Me doing this challenge is powerful for me, but seeing you challenge yourself, that's powerful for all of us. Your story, your growth, your small wins, they matter. And if this episode resonated with you, the best way you can support me is